family. You know, since I started speaking on any spiritual topics on YouTube, I've made something as clear as I can, that there are no true spiritual teachers, only signposts to lead you to the only place you can be truly taught, and that is directly by God. And God teaches you through the Spirit, and the Spirit is only found in the present moment. When the whole of our perception, reception of reality is centered in that present moment, the Spirit will be there to guide, to teach, to nourish you. And many of us get lost in our words. We try to interpret this moment with words, and it's not there. Words are a tiny percentage of the experience of a human. They're important, but they're a tiny percentage. Those who have acted as something that looks like a teacher are signposts. Leaders, preachers, they are signposts to lead you to that Spirit. And anyone who is not leading you there is an entertainer. And that's okay, it's nothing negative. But you have to find that truth, and that truth is the teacher that is the Spirit. And that Spirit is found in the present moment alone, the timeless, word-free present moment. But many of those with those signposts have tried to show you in story and folktale as well. And this must thus be saturated in the human journey, since persons started to articulate with words, started to self-explore, because it doesn't just exist in one spiritual text, it exists in our folktales. I want to speak about Snow White and the 7 dwarfs as we've come to know it, or traditionally, Little Snow White. And I'll go through this story stage by stage and show you how it's no different to many of the Bible stories in the very mystic core of it. And of course it was compiled by the Brothers Grimm, but not written by them. It was placed in their book, but I mistakenly thought that they had written it, but it's a folktale they collected. So this was ingrained inside our faith of the European tribalism, the Germanic faith, the Germanic tribal way of life had these folktales ingrained, and there are many folktales all around the world. But the reason I say faith is because it was conveying something deeply, profoundly important. And where did the origin of that knowledge stem from is very fascinating. Was it a civilization long forgot? Sumeria, Atlantis? What was it that allowed this to be inside the consciousness of humanity? What was it that allowed us to have these perceptions, or was it purely just the level of awareness we had of self, because there were no distractions, that allowed all of the folktales across the planet to come to the same point? The story originally begins with Snow White's mother on a spinning wheel. She pricks her finger. When she pricks her finger, 3 drops of blood hit the snow, and she says, "Oh, how beautiful, and how wonderful it would be to have a beautiful child whose skin is white as snow and lips as red as blood and as fair as can be." And her wish comes true. And I'll take this in stages. That first part is speaking about something. The Hindu faith have the chakras. Chakra means wheel in Sanskrit. The spinning wheel of life, the potential of all that is. And Jesus says that whatever you so ask and believe will be given unto you. He also says the faith the size of a mustard seed is enough. Belief is the issue. Unbelief is the big problem. When I fast, I see that unbelief is removed from me. It's a demonic aspect of our human journey. And unbelief comes in many forms. Most persons have total unbelief in God, and they make different gods in the situation they're in. They want to start a charitable project. Lots of people write me about this, so I'm giving that example. I want to start a charitable project, but I have no money. Well, right now, you just made the bank the god of your situation, not God. And so this is the unbelief pinning us and our amazing power as creators on this planet down. When you put another god in the situation, you are filling yourself with unbelief in the true God. And so, just as it was, what she believed, she got. And she got her beautiful daughter, Snow White. Unfortunately, her mother dies in the story, and her father remarries, and the woman he remarries is wicked and vain, and she becomes the queen. And this wicked, vain queen has a mirror, or a looking glass, as it was originally written. But in the modern term, it's mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? So she has extreme vanity, and the mirror tells her the most fair is Snow White. And she is enraged with jealousy, and she decides she wants to have Snow White killed and hires a huntsman to kill her. That wicked queen, the wicked stepmother, the vanity, is you. This is the flesh in Christianity. This is the Goliath that is slain in Christianity. The lower self is the Goliath, and it is slain by conquering the five senses and striking the giant here and overcoming the flesh once you've got dominance over your 7 endocrine glands. The queen is no different to the Goliath. The queen is chasing down the pure, beautiful, potential, loving Christ energy inside of you, and decides, as it often does, I'm going to kill this. I'm going to kill this because I want my vanity, I want my existence more than I want this to have its existence. And it's your egoic identity, it's the thoughts of your mind. It's anything that is not the presence of spirit, the great teacher of spirit in the present moment. It's the self-identity. I am John. That alone is the starting point for all of the trouble of the wicked queen in the story. And so the huntsman takes Snow White away into the deep forest, where she pleads for her life, and he decides he can't kill her. She then is left in the deep forest. He goes back. In the original story, he kills a bear, takes the lungs and liver to the wicked queen, who consumes them. She eats them, leaving Snow White in the forest, and the wicked queen believing she is dead. The ego has consumed the godly nature. And now you, as the protagonist of the tale, are lost in the wilderness, just as Moses became lost in the wilderness. And when Moses was lost in the wilderness, what did he find? He found 7 sisters. Now Snow White finds a house, and inside the house she finds 7 beds. And she sleeps in the 7th bed after saying a prayer. Moses was lost in the wilderness, Snow White was lost in the wilderness. They both found 7 because they finally found union over the 7 endocrine glands representing the complete human being. In Hinduism, the 7 chakras, the swirling energy centers based around those endocrine glands. The dwarfs come and find her sleeping, and they say to her when she wakes up, "You can stay here under our protection. But if you do, you must clean the house, make it tidy, and cook for us, because we will be busy doing other things." The princess of a kingdom who has this extremely vain and horrible stepmother now has to do extremely humble work to be able to come under the protection of the complete self, the 7 dwarfs. And so she agrees to it. She humbles herself and she finds safety inside the union of her 7 energy centers and in the presence of God and the spirit within there. And the spirit ministers to her, the 7 dwarfs, and says, "Be careful, because that wicked stepmother will come and get you. And she will know, and she will come for you." You see, the godly nature knows the ego is never dead forever. It knows it's going to come back. And so the 7 dwarfs leave, and in a state of unconsciousness, first of all, the wicked stepmother has the mirror and says, who's the fairest of us all? And again, the mirror repeats, because deep down the ego knows, and the subconscious repeats to the ego, the depth of the consciousness speaks and says, the fairest is the godly nature, Snow White. So mirror, mirror, who's the fairest of them all? Snow White, of course. So the ego wants to bring down Snow White. And the ego comes and tricks Snow White at the 7 dwarfs' house. The evil stepmother comes to the 7 dwarfs' home and tempts the complete godly natured side of us with vanity. I have this lace for you, it's so beautiful. Material trinkets, desires outside of yourself, I have it, do you want it? And Snow White falls for it, and the wicked stepmother tightens it so tight that she can't breathe. Because that's what happens when you indulge in the worldly desires and pleasures and the things we perceive to be beautiful outside of ourselves. We cut off, we can't breathe. We can't breathe in the life and the light of God. It's just an impossibility. It can't be done. When the dwarfs get back, they undo the straps and she breathes again. The godly nature returns to her and says, you've made a mistake. And so they say, you be careful now, be extra vigilant this time. She says, I will be. And her wicked stepmother, thinking she's dead, speaks to the mirror, finds out she's not. The ego again sees that the true nature has risen up. And so the stepmother creates a poisoned comb and tempts her with another vain thing, her image, her self-image. Use this poisoned comb. Snow White places it in her hair and she falls down into a deep sleep, and the stepmother believes that she's dead and she leaves. The evil queen, the stepmother, leaves. The dwarves find her and they remove the comb. The godly nature, the 7 complete energy centers which allows us to be in the true teacher, the spirit, speaks to her and says, no, be done with your vanity as well. So they remove the comb, they remove that vanity from her, and she wakes up again into her godly nature. Again it repeats. The stepmother comes back, the wicked queen stepmother, because she sees in the mirror that the godly nature has risen again. And this is the journey you will always have in life. Comes back and says, I have made this apple. Now we're into our other 5 senses. The most polluting things, our vanity, our pride, our gluttony. All of these, our sense of self, our self-image. All of these problematic traits that allow our ego to have position and dominion over us. And Snow White eats. Now the ego eats of the apple too, in the story. The wicked queen eats half of the apple and nothing happens because only one half is poisoned. And that's because the ego can live on the indulgences quite okay, but the spirit can't live on the indulgences. It must live only on God. It must live only on spirit. Man does not live by bread alone. And so she eats it and she dies. And the 7 dwarfs come back and they say, this time surely she's dead. And they place her in a glass coffin. And in the original story, not the Disney one, randomly a prince appears and he says, she's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I want her. I want to buy this coffin with this beautiful child inside. And they say, no, you can't do that. And he says, then give her to me, please. And so out of pity, they give him Snow White's, what they believe, body in the glass coffin. The reason he can't buy her is because you can't, with the action of the intellect, which is what that represents, you cannot, using that side of you that provides for your survival needs, you cannot find a true union inside of who you are. You just can't do it. And so to buy would be an impossibility, but to find a true union is not. And so the masculine and the feminine exists inside us all. In the Gospel of Thomas, it says, when the male becomes female, the female becomes male. The word Israel, which Jacob is told that he is Israel by the angel after wrestling him, Israel is made up of three aspects: Isis, Ra, and Elohim. Masculine, Isis feminine, Ra masculine, Elohim masculine, feminine. It represents union. When you understand or integrate your shadow, when you know your full nature, you know the masculine and feminine, you know your opposites within you, you know the potential for love, the potential for hate is inside you, you become whole. And at that point, you really can stand extremely well with yourself, and you don't really need to worry so much about that wicked queen tempting you back, because when you know your whole nature, the temptation can't creep into the side of the nature of yourself that you don't know. And so his men pick up the coffin, and he doesn't kiss her in the original story. They drop the coffin, and the piece of apple comes out of her mouth, and she wakes up. She finds a full union. You find the full union. And then a marriage is set between this prince and Snow White. The marriage is going to happen when you get to that point. When we reach that point of understanding the whole self. When we understand that, as Jesus said in Gospel of Thomas, the male become female, female become male. When you integrate your shadow, when you understand that the potential for good and evil dwells within you, the hot and the cold is within you as well. The light and the dark is within you, the flesh and the spirit. When you understand these parts of you, that's when you can have dominion over them. But when you reject one side, when you reject that you have the potential for them within you, you'll never fully know that side of yourself, and the temptation come in through that doorway because you don't even know the door is there. And so they decide to have their wedding. And the ego sees this and says, I am going to check my mirror now, and Snow White is dead. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? And the mirror says, the new young queen is the fairest. And this stepmother is enraged. And so she gets ready to go to the wedding, not knowing that it's Snow White. And when she sees that it's Snow White, she can't believe what she's seeing. But gruesomely, in the original story, a pair of iron shoes are heated until they are red hot. And they are placed upon the stepmother, who is forced to dance in the fiery shoes until she dies. Earth, water, air, fire. New mind. I baptize you with water, one will come after me who will baptize you with fire. They knew these stages of consciousness somehow, because the ego is burnt up in those higher stages of consciousness, and the ego, the wicked stepmother queen, was burnt up in those fiery iron shoes. And so this is the same story yet again that we see constantly throughout our beautiful folk tales, spiritual religious texts. And it's the same journey we are all facing. We will go into the wilderness as we seek who we are. When we finally understand or start to find an understanding of our body, we'll find the seven sisters, or King Nebuchadnezzar will wander for 7 years, or Snow White will find 7 dwarfs. She will sleep in the 7th bed after saying a prayer. She will allow the union of the full 7 endocrine glands in her body to know her full body. Goliath will be slain when you strike the giant here by surrendering the 5 senses represented by 5 stones. When you're at that point, you must remain in a state of humility so as you can stay under the teaching of the Spirit whilst having that vibrational state of completeness, allowing you to be present with the Spirit. Then your ego will come and tempt you with everything, pride, vanity, everything. I know, I'm just passing through this constantly. I know the journey so well from my own life. Then eventually you will, at times, not permanently, but you will find an understanding of your whole nature. and this will make you much stronger, because your ego will try to tempt you with those vanities, but every single day, because you know your true nature, you will know the importance of sitting in the presence of the Spirit and allowing it to minister to you. And when you know the light and the dark potential within you, and when you understand these things, then the enemy can't use the dark side of you to sneak stuff in. Your temptation is dealt with. Temptation will come, but you will be very conscious of your dark side. Masculine, feminine. When the temptation comes to do something on this side of the energy that you're not used to, you will be more aware of it, because you have understood the masculine feminine union, the Israel. You have understood it. You've understood the hot and the cold together. When it comes from this side, you'll also be able to. But if you are just not understanding your whole nature, if you're constantly blaming all the troubles of the world on this energy spectrum here and pretending that spectrum doesn't live inside you, it will destroy you. And so you find union with your prince. And when you find union with your prince, the ego will come after you again, but you will be able to rise up into those higher realms of consciousness, because you'll have a practice that you know has to happen, because you'll understand yourself, you'll understand how you can't skip it, you understand the work you have to do, and you'll take that wicked queen and you'll put her in those fiery shoes and dance her to death as you continue with your beautiful union guided by the Spirit of God. That's Snow White, no doubt, because you've never heard it. You've got to. We all have to start seeing these folk tales and understanding how to implement them and reflect them onto our journey. Because when we do, the end of suffering for self and then the end of suffering for other is never really too far away. And by suffering, I mean mental anguish, emotional anguish. Because when you truly reach that state, your physical body might waver. That might happen in this world. But you will rejoice in your suffering, because something gives way. Because you see through the illusion. You see it. Find your Snow White, heat up those iron shoes, and deal with the wicked queen who is coming after you. God bless, guys. Bye. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, as it really helps us to grow the channel and with it help more children here in Tanzania. Also, don't forget you can support our work by sharing with children in crisis here, be it sharing for a particular need or even sharing one-on-one support for education, housing, food and medical care. It can be done for as little as the cost of a cup of coffee a week back in the West after all. Just visit www.sharetanzania.co.uk to find out more. Lastly, remember you can also support us via Patreon, www.patreon.com/featherstail, and help keep us here in Tanzania to continue our work. The links for the website and for the Patreon are in the description box of this video. Love and light, guys. See you soon.